Week 11. 3 weeks left for the regular season. Playoff pushes on. Last place avoidment pushes on. Last week was really a big old nothing burger, honestly. Nothing really changed in the standings. Everything got a little closer, but as Caleb said, nothing really changed. Steele clinched first place and the bye. Congratulations, Steele. Week 11, you only lost one time. That's pretty crazy. I can't wait for you to eventually lose to a 7-7 team in the semifinals off your bye. That's going to be very funny. Before we get into predictions, playoff picture, all that stuff, what I get last week, I went 2-3. We're at 28-27. Steele got your game right. Caleb got your game right. Rory let me down. Ben, loser of the week, let me down. And then, worst of all, I let myself down. And by me, I mean CeeDee Lamb dropping a walk-in touchdown cost me the game. CeeDee, you're a scrub. That sucked a lot. That sucked big time for sure. Standings. Let's get into some league standings, shall we? We do have Ford, as we all know and love, bringing up the rear, 3-8. Then we have 3 teams at 4-7. Chase, Sam, Caleb in that order. And then we have Derek at 5-6 with the last playoff spot. And then Najee Nation and myself at 6-5. And then Chris and Ben at 6-4-1. And then Steele with a 3.5 game lead on everyone else. So it's pretty even except for Steele, honestly. And I know Ford's in last and he just lost Drake London and it's not looking great for him. And, Steele scored 500 more points than him, but he's not technically dead. He wins. If he wins out and one of the 4-7 guys does not win out, probably has to lose 2 because he's not going to catch anyone in the point differential at this point. And that's the thing that makes it difficult for Ford, I'll say, is that not only does he have to catch people for last place, he's probably going to have to win one more game because he's behind everyone on that point differential tiebreaker. So it is unfortunate for Ford that he rightfully is in last place to make it more difficult for him to climb out of it, but rough year. The third place trophy is looking like it's going to be unobtainable for our newly engaged friend Ford, who once again, congratulations, Ford. But let's get into our matchups from last week, shall we? Our first matchup, Steele and Ford. Steele comes away with a win, 146-110. Steele was third in scoring this week, so definitely deserved to get a win. Who got it done for him? Sean Tucker was his leading scorer. Out of all the people in Steele's lineup, Sean Tucker was the best player. 34 points, scored 3 touchdowns. Bijan with 30, JSM with 20, and then everyone else was just okay after that. Puka with 14 points. I read somewhere that the Rams have shaken up their personnel, looked at they were running for the first couple weeks, and Puka's numbers have taken a hit. Maybe Steele sold the farm for something he shouldn't have done for. But he's 10-1. He's clinched the first round. I'm sure he's just ready for week 15 because that's the next time he's playing meaningful football in this league. Lamar only with 4 points. Jake Ferguson was solid with 11. Kate Otten was just okay with 4. Packers D, they were hoping for a pick 6 from Jameis, didn't get one. And then Brandon Aubrey with 9 points. So 146, that's enough to get it done most weeks for sure. Very solid outing for Steele. He gets the win. Ford side of the matchup, 110. Didn't have anyone break 20. He had a 5 guys in double digits with Stafford, T. Higgins, Drake London, who he loses for a couple weeks and maybe the rest of the year if the Falcons are just going to be shutting it down. Mark Andrews with 15, Tyler Loop with 11. R.J. Harvey disappointed against the Chiefs. Woody Mark disappointed after a good week last week. DeAndre Swift disappointed against the Vikings. Wandale disappointed as well. So just a lot of disappointing stuff for Ford this week. He was not the lowest scorer. He actually beat Ben in scoring by a good 23 points. Ben was the lowest scorer this week. But not enough. He was the second lowest scorer. So, he's 3-8. He takes another loss. It was always going to be tough for him to beat Steele, who's sitting at 10-1. He's only lost one time all year to Najee Nation before Najee Nation crumbled. But yeah, first and 10th place, Steele 10-1, Ford 3-8, last place. Second matchup, Derek 160, Rory 130, and Rory knew as soon as he opened his mouth to chirp Derek saying, this was a much-needed opponent this week. We're happy to get Derek on the schedule. He should have known he was cooked. What happened? Derek traded for Ted McMillan, who I don't think had broken 20 points all year. I want to fact-check that. He hadn't. His highest scoring before this week was 17.9 points in Week 6 against Dallas. Goes off for 33 points this last week. 2 touchdowns, 12 targets, 8 catches. Just absolutely balls out this week. George Pickens looks to be the wide receiver 1. That's another person Derek traded for, both from Sam. So both these receivers from Sam combined for 60 points. Gianti looked just okay. Aaron Jones looked just okay. Tyron Tracy looked good. Chase Brown looked good. The Ravens defense looked good. Bo Nix with 12 points. He's pretty mid, as we know. And then Chris Boswell with 9 points. Derek, winner of the week, again. Just his team is so hit or miss. I think he's had 3 winner of the week videos now, and he's only won 5 times. So it's pretty crazy. Even if he would have left in Sam Laporta, who's on injured reserve on the lineup, he would have won. He left points on the bench, too, with Michael Wilson, 33 on the bench. Maybe Derek plugs him in this week if MHJ is missing time. What a crazy waiver wire pickup for Derek, who finally learned how to use the waiver wire. Massive win for Derek. On Rory's side, 130 is pretty respectable. That's normally enough to get it done, but he went up against the winner of the week, so unfortunate for him. Who got it done for him? It was just Josh Allen, 42 points. No one else scored more than 12 for his whole team. Saquon with 10, Zay Flowers with 11, Schultz with 11, Courtland Sutton with 9, Javonte with 10, Cowboys D with 11, Ekbuka only with 9, Quinchon only with 5. So all those guys that he traded Steele for, not too hot. They only combined for 30 points in total. I don't even think, 26 points. So not good. You definitely don't want the 3 people you traded away Puka for to not even average 10 points each. He was obviously very mad. The Patriots kicker missing that kick. That was the first kick he'd missed since week 1, so that was clearly his fault. But once you shook off the Najee Nation out of his system, got that first miss out of the way, he was pretty solid for the rest of the way. There wasn't really anything Rory could have done to win this game. He didn't really leave points on the bench. So Derek was just the better manager this week, better player. Derek gets a win. 160 to 130. Derek stays in the playoff picture at 5-6, and Rory's 6-5, still in the playoff picture as well. Third matchup, another game I got wrong. Chase versus Ben. Chase 146, Ben 87. Ben's worst performance of the year by far, but Chase was the winner. We'll do his side first. I did think he was going to be winner of the week this week. He was the second highest. Derek got him with the Pickens explosion game on Monday night. What went well for Chase? Everything except the Falcons defense. I started him earlier this season when they played Carolina, when they got me 0 points. Or actually, they only got, when did I start him? I guess it was against Miami or something. They got 0 points or 5 points, -1 points this week. But outside of that, everyone else did a pretty good job for Chase this week. Jalen Hurts was just okay with 14. Derrick Henry looked good with 20. Kyron was 16. Nico's looked great with Davis Mills at the helm. CJ Stroud is just horrible. Devontae disappointed with 1 point. Kelsey with 24. Fat Debo with 20. Keenan with 9. And then Eddie Pinheiro. Like I said, it's either 1 point or it's 15. He got the 16 points this week. He left some points on the bench. DK outscored Devontae Smith. He's always going to be flip-flopping between them. But it wasn't by that big of a margin. It wouldn't have been enough to give him one of the week, so it literally wouldn't change anything. On Ben's side of the matchup, what went wrong? Josh Jacobs got hurt is the biggest thing. So he's probably going to miss this week. That is very detrimental for Ben. Ben's team looks to be falling apart at the helms, folks. I'll be honest with you. Justin Herbert only with 3 points. I told you guys when Joe Alt went down, I was concerned for the Chargers offense. That looked to be the case here, only with 3 points. They lose 35-6. Josh Jacobs gets hurt. Amon-Ra, MAGA St. Brown looked horrible after that Trump dance. He dropped. He couldn't catch anything against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. Goff looked horrible. Rashad White doesn't even look to be the handcuff, the Bucky anymore. Sean Tucker looks to have surpassed him. His best player this week, his 2 best players were Travis Etienne, who honestly looked like he was ceding work to Tootin at the beginning of the game. Tootin looked to be the guy. Tootin gets hurt. Travis Etienne gets in the end zone twice. And then Cairo Santos, which is the next highest score with 17 points. No one else outside of that top 10 points. So that's pretty tough sledding, and it's not like his bench is looking particularly deep right now either. With Chuba, Garrett Wilson on IR, Xavier Worthy hasn't been great. He does get a lot back from bye. But yeah, things are not... I know Ben's in second right now, but if you're looking at that roster, you're probably not super pumped about it right now. So Chase gets a much-needed win. 4-7, 9th place. Ben drops the game. 6-4-1, still in second place. Matchup 4, Caleb and Chris, 140 to 118. Caleb gets another win. Chris takes a loss. What went right for Caleb? Trevion Henderson, 32 points. Finally, the 4th-round pick starting to pay dividends for Caleb. It is going to be very, very funny for everyone when Ramondre comes back and Ramondre gets a starting job back, because he's just not nearly as good as Trevion, but it doesn't matter because Ramondre is the starter, and it's going to drive everyone up a wall, and it's going to be very funny. Outside of that, A-Kane looked good with 20, 21, Jahmyr Gibbs with 19, Troy Franklin with 12, Texas defense looked good with 10, Trey Tucker with 14 on Monday Night Football, so very solid all around. Ladd and Kyle Pitts were the 2 disappointments for Caleb this week. Chargers offense I just talked about, but they looked really bad. Kyle Pitts, obviously, what do you do with Falcons players right now? Penix goes down. They're going back to Kirk Cousins. Drake London's going to be hurt. The whole offense is going to look very, very disjunctured for sure. Yeah, I mean, a good win for sure from Caleb. Third in scoring this week. Fourth in scoring, 140 points, normally enough to get it done. So Caleb keeps up his high-scoring games. Chris, what happened to Chris? 118 points, bottom half in scoring this week. Kittle was good with 24 points. Dak was good with 24 points. Diggs was good with 19 points. A.J. Brown with 11. No one else in double digits. Brees with 8. Tajay Spears with 8. Jamar only with 6. Rome with 6. Seahawks with 4. Jake Bates with 5. Just Rome Odunze is so hit or miss, man. It's tough for him, especially because he looked so good at the beginning of the year. 15-31, 15-16. Then he had his bye. 2 stinkers in a row. Back to good. 0 points. Back to good. 6 points. So what do you do with him? He's basically, I think, a boom or bust play at this point, but he can't trust the floor. And then Jamar with the L. Not a great game. Spit on Jalen Ramsey. Lied about spitting on Jalen Ramsey. Got suspended for a game. So that's extra tough for sure. But Caleb, much needed win here. I think he could lose out. Ford could win out. But I think with his point differential, in theory, he is probably safe from last place. He's looking to make that playoff push. And if he gets in, man, it's gonna be exciting. Caleb gets a win here. 4-7, 7th place. Chris drops to 6-4-1 in 3rd. In our last matchup, me and Sam. Sam gets a win here, 130-123. I talked about it at the beginning, but yeah, CD dropped that walk-in touchdown at the end, which would have been enough for me to get the win. So that was not fun. That was pretty frustrating. I honestly, 123 probably shouldn't get a win, but that would have put me right at 131. It is what it is, right? Sam gets a win here. And normally when you see a matchup like this where the defense special teams battle is so different. I was 20 to Sam's 1 point. That team normally wins. Wasn't the case for me this week. Pretty disappointing week across the league. Obviously, I was pretty big on the Steelers this week. That was a bummer. Just Kenneth Gainwell show. Just Jalen Warren leaves with banged up. CA3, that bum, is already off my team. Just only 1 catch. Dave Montgomery looked really bad. Malik Washington with 7 points. That was a risky dart throw, and it wasn't really anything I could do. I started him over Quentin Johnson, which was the correct play. QJ was 0 points. You can't start him if he's got an injury designation, but should have just started Chris Rodriguez. Wouldn't have mattered. I still would have lost, but is what it is, right? James Cook with 20. TD Lamb with 17. Trey McBride with 27. He's been my best player. And then Jason Myers. I actually think, if Jason Myers would have made that 60-yard field goal instead of missing it, I would have won this game. So that 1 kick at the end of the game was the difference here. That was a 7-point swing. I would have won this game if Jason Myers made that kick. But if my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bicycle. So we lose this game. Sam, obviously the trade for me having Tyler Warren, him having Rico Dowdle and Juwan Jennings this week benefited him greatly because Tyler Warren was on bye and he started both those players and they got him points. He did leave some points on the bench. He traded for Kenneth Walker. He left him on the bench. Christian Watson on the bench. Both of those guys with 20 points. Chargers D with -1. Obviously, that's really tough to see. But CMC scored 35 points. The Niners couldn't have just ran that touchdown all the way back. They had to get stopped on the 2-yard line for CMC to run it in. Devontae caught the ball 1 time. It was a touchdown. Brock Bowers with 14 points. He looked good. Jameson Williams looks to be the wide receiver 1 in Detroit right now with Amon-Ra not playing particularly well over the past couple weeks. Rico Dowdle looked solid. Just a solid performance from Sam for sure. 130 points. Typically enough to get it done. Obviously, Najee Nation did not run into that same fortune as Sam this week. But, if you score 130, you're going to, in theory, be in it most weeks. Sam gets a much-needed win here to stay alive in the playoff picture. 4-7 in 8th place. I drop to 6-5 in 4th. Before we move on to predictions for this upcoming week, our winners and losers of the weeks, we have their videos. Our winner of the week gets to go first normally. Just received his video, 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. He's driving. He's not paying attention to the road. He's making this video for us. Derek, what have you to say? Back on top once again.
Hey, what's up, guys? I forgot to make my video. Levin just texted me, so I'm going to make it while I'm driving here. Very happy with the win. Love my team's performance right now. We're fighting. Let me tell you, this team is fighting. I don't think anyone I drafted is currently in my starting lineup except Ash, Bo, Nix. I'm definitely wrong about that, but still, not a lot of people I started the season with that I thought were going to be performers. Got a lot of fill-in guys stepping up. It's good to see. Also, 2 for 2 on trades with Sam. I mean, every time I make a trade with Sam, my stock price goes up. So yeah, it was a good week. I don't have the box score in front of me. To be honest, I couldn't watch any football because I was working all Sunday. But we're on to next week, and let's see if we can keep this thing rolling. Whoever I play next week, good luck. I probably shouldn't be talking shit right now because now I'm going to lose, and I'll be making a loser of the week video next week. But good luck. We're coming.
Very well said, and glad to see you're being safe, both eyes on the road. You do play Chase this week. We'll get into that matchup after we hear from our loser of the week. It's our boy Benny D, who just dropped Chuba, his third-round pick. Tough to see for sure. Benny D, how are the vibes in next year's Champions locker room?
What's up, guys? Loser of the week video here. Your boy's back, Benny D, the flesh. Dropped an absolute egg against Chase. Put up 87 points. Very weak. Very pathetic. My second leading scorer was Cairo Santos with 17. So that gives you a strong indication of how my week went. Obviously, the big takeaway is Josh Jacobs going down. Looks like he went down after the first quarter with a knee injury. Looks like no structural damage, though, no ACL tear, which is good news. I will need him back and strong because if he goes down, my team is totally cooked. Totally cooked. So I got Caleb next week, 4-7 team. I'm feeling pretty good. I will have to make some roster changes with players on bye and injury, of course, but things are getting exciting now. We're on the home stretch. Can't believe another season is almost coming to a close, but we are a couple games away from the playoffs. And like I said, things are getting exciting. Looks like Ford is going to have the punishment. Steele, obviously, with the number 1 seed. So we will see how things play out. And looking forward to it, fellas. Let's go.
Love it. Always get fired up to see Benny D's face. Nice little recap on what's going on in the league. He is right. 3 weeks left of the regular season. We're getting the playoff picture. Once again, congrats to Steele for clinching first place already. Let's move on, right? We're on this upcoming week. Let's get into our first matchup, which is Chase and our previous winner of the week, Derek. Derek has not set his lineup yet. He doesn't have a QB on the roster. He doesn't have a tight end on the roster that he can play. So, hard for me to make a prediction here because I legitimately have no idea who is going to be his quarterback or his tight end this week since Bo Nix and Zach Ertz are on bye. He doesn't have another quarterback on his roster, and Laporte is on injured reserve. So, this is a tough matchup for me to predict because there's nothing for me to accurately look at here. So, let's look at Chase's side of the matchup first. 134 points is his projection for the week. That's about middle of the pack for our league. He's got Debo on bye. He's got Keenan Allen on bye. They've both been steady producers for him, but it honestly, taking a decision away from Chase, that's solid for sure because he struggles with his second flex, is picking the right guy. He did pick up Kenneth Gainwell like a jerk. I was holding on to him literally all year, and then I was like, you know what? Jalen Warren's been fine. I can let him go, and then he gets banged up. So that was a little bit of a bummer for me for sure. But his matchup, I mean, we know his team. It's pretty mid. The Jalen Devontae Smith stack's got to be one of the worst ADP stacks for their value that you've gotten. Derrick Henry, I mean, if he's not going to get it going against the Jets, when's he going to get it going? Like, come on. Kyron, running back 8, he's been solid. Nico's been very, very good with Davis Mills at the helm, 20 points in his last 2 games. I think CJ Stroud may have been the problem. Travis Kelce, sure, why not? DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy, man, that's stinky. And then he's rolling with the Falcons defense against New Orleans. I think he rolled with them last week. They got him -1 points, and he says, you know what, that was a fluke. Even though they just lost, their starting quarterback, they just lost their best offensive receiver. Now's the time they're going to hunker down on defense. They're going to get some picks on Tyler Shout, or whatever that guy's name is. And then Eddie Pinheiro, who I think is not going to play this week. And honestly, if Chase doesn't start a kicker against Derek, that would probably, counteract the two of them, with their roster management. So we'll see who Chase goes to the waivers if he realizes that Eddie P is going to be missing time. We'll see, right? Derek's side of the matchup, I just talked about it. Hard for me to give an accurate prediction without a QB and a tight end. But George Pickens has been awesome. Tet looks like he's emerging. Chase Brown looked good. This week is a pretty tough matchup going against New England. Tyron Tracy looked good last week, but Detroit's not a great matchup either. The Ravens defense is a good play this week. And then Aaron Jones, if he can stay healthy, is going to be pretty solid for him. Gianti, very hit or miss so far. The RB13, the Raiders offense as a whole just does not seem to look good. I do think when Derek does put a QB and tight end in, that's going to be about 25-ish points, 25, 27 points. So he'll probably come in about a 5-point underdog here. And like I said, it's hard for me to make a decision here because I legitimately don't know what Derek's going to do. With all that being said, both these guys coming off big wins. Chase was almost winner of the week. Derek was a winner of the week last week. Both these guys fighting to keep their seasons alive. Chase has to win this game if he wants to stay in the playoff picture. Derek wants to win this to stay in the playoff picture. I think Derek takes this one. I think he's gonna get home. He's gonna drive safe the rest of his journey, and he's gonna get home and he's gonna make some roster tweaks. He's gonna make some adjustments, and he'll get a solid win. He'll put up some numbies this week. I think Derek takes this one. Matchup 2, we got Chris and Ford. Chris comes in about a 3-point favorite here. These two teams did play previously in week 4. Chris won by a score of 131-102. And Chris is down Jamar Chase this week, which honestly is just massive for Ford, especially because Ford has T. Higgins. Like, if Jamar was going to get suspended any week, this was the week for it to happen for Ford. He's playing the Jamar owner. He's got T. Higgins. Joe Burrow apparently practiced this week. Joe Burrow might be back. So things may be looking up for the dumpster fire this week. He got Woody Marks. He picked up Emmanuel Wilson off the waivers. We'll see if that ends up being a good play. I know Josh Jacobs didn't play today. LaFleur said he's actually day-to-day. We'll see if he suits up. Ford really needs him to not suit up because his other options right now are Jacoby Myers or Kareem Hunt with Drake London hitting the injured block. I'm not going to say injured reserve because he's not on IR, and RJ Harvey on bye, and Vidal on bye. So, tough for Ford. Not as tough as Chris has it this week with Jamar being suspended. He's hoping he gets Bucky back. I think he practiced in a limited fashion today. He's ramping up his reps at practice to test his availability. That doesn't sound like he's playing this week. If I had to read between the lines, we'll see. Maybe he still gets another Sean Tucker game. He's going with Dak against Philly. Brees, Rome, Diggs has been awesome. That's a great matchup against the Bengals too. Kittle's been awesome. A.J. Brown's been just okay. Addison, 9 is just atrocious. Seahawks D, that's basically an extra player for Chris, and then Jake Bates. Even though the Lions never kick the ball, they never kick field goals, that's still a great kicker to have. This is a tough one. Chris just lost. Ford's lost a lot of games. He's 3-8. We don't have to harp on Ford. He's going with Ricky P this week, who got 1 catch for 0 yards last week. And I know this because I started him in another league. Wandale, you hope Dart comes back. Was targeting Wandale a lot and often. Woody has actually a pretty good matchup this week against Buffalo. Maybe he gets to go when he had a lot of carries last week. DeAndre Swift, you got to hope he finds the end zone. I think both of these teams are going to be on the lower half of scoring this week. They're both going to be bottom 5, but I think the dumpster fire comes away with a win here. I think Ford gets a dub, keeps his chances of not getting last place alive. Yeah, I think Ford takes this one. Matchup 3, we got Najee Nation, who, again, started 5-0 and is 1-5 since then, versus Victoria's Secret, coming off a nice win last week. He comes in at a 23-point favorite. That's a lot of points. 156 points projection. That's pretty high. That's good for the second highest in the league after Steele, which, makes sense. And I might be biased because I just lost to Sam's team last week. Sam's team's looking pretty dangerous. I know he's made a lot of trades. His bench, he's got some depth to him with Juwan Jennings and Alec Pierce on the bench. Jackson Dart and Brock Purdy. Those are some good options to have, the QB. CMC was the correct 1-1 overall. I remember we were all like, you're crazy. That was the correct pick for him to make. Kenneth Walker gets in the starting lineup this week. Rashee Rice, Jameson Williams looking like the wide receiver 1 in Detroit over the past couple weeks. Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams, Rico Dowdle. And the Raiders D against Shador, I love that play, Sam. I absolutely love it. I definitely think they pick him off a couple times this coming week. And he's still rocking with Young Hui. That's never going to die. And, these two guys, they saw each other twice this week. We had 2 men's league games. They were chirping. And by chirping, I was telling Rory he was going to lose, and Sam was agreeing with me. So, I mean, I think you guys know where I'm going with this prediction. That doesn't mean we don't do our analysis for Najee Nation, who he said he was going to pick Najee up to get him back in the locker room. Instead, he's rostering 2 kickers. So, he did not do that. That's okay. Cortland Sutton on bye this week. That's about it. Cortland Sutton and Broncos D. So, Broncos D being on bye is tough for him. That's been a starter. The Saints defense against Atlanta, I know it's Kirk Cousins, but can we trust the Saints defense? I'm not sure, honestly. Josh Allen, Saquon, Javonte, Zay Flowers, Booker, Dalton Schultz has been solid. Pittman, tough matchup against Kansas City this week. Judkins just can't seem to get it going, honestly. With Gabriel, it was Gabriel at the helm. We'll see if it's a little different with Shador. So that Cleveland Raiders game, pretty big for this matchup with the Raiders defense going up against Quinshon. And then he's got Kaimi Fairbairn on Thursday Night Football. Again, Rory going with the kicker on Thursday Night Football. That strategy, he hasn't won recently, so is it paying off? We're not sure. I said it already. I alluded to it. I think Sam's going to win here. You know, he's a 23-point favorite. His team's on the come up. Najee Nation on the come down. It would be devastating for Najee Nation to start 5-0 and then finish the season 1-8 and miss playoffs. That would just be devastating, and we'd hate for that to happen. But I think Sam takes this one. Matchup 4, and if you see me smiling, it's because I'm looking at this, and this is just the injury bowl this week. We got Caleb and Ben. Both of these guys have someone in their lineup that is projected for 0 points, which is why their projected total is so low. 115 to 111. Ben comes in at about a 4-point favorite. These two teams have played previously. Week 4, Ben won by a score of 146 to 131. Ben's side of the matchup, obviously we heard from him already. He needs Josh Jacobs real bad to play this week. If he doesn't, I legitimately don't know. It would have to be Rachaad White or Bam Knight. Those are his only 2 options. Rachaad White might not even be the backup running back after Bucky this week. I think Sean Tucker looked much better than him. Bam Knight, they just activated Trey Benson's window. So, it's not looking good, bruv, for Ben this week. On Caleb's side, it's also not looking good, bruv, this week. He's got everyone on bye. Yeah, he's got everyone on bye. Akane's on bye, McConkey's on bye, Troy Franklin's on bye, Gadsden's on bye. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not playing this week. He's only got 2 players projected for points on his bench, which is the Texans defense, who he's not going to play against the Bills. He's actually playing the Bills defense against the Texans, and then Caleb Williams. So, I mean, Caleb is literally going to have to drop someone to pick up someone to play this week. I'm not sure who he's going to drop. Maybe he makes a trade this week. I legitimately have no idea what he's going to do. But like Derek, I don't have all the data, but I still got to make an informed prediction here. Ben's side of the matchup, we talked about how banged up he is. He talked about how banged up he was. Xavier Worthy, maybe he gets plugged in the lineup this week. The biggest thing is he needs a running back. If Josh Jacobs doesn't play, that is. And I see Travis Etienne is questionable. They were limited. He was limited today. So, he's going to play. He'll be fine. Romeo Dubes limited today. I just realized he's got 3 Packers starting for him. He's got Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and Romeo Dubes. Ben does potentially get Joe Burrow back this week, but it is against the New England Patriots defense, who he is starting. So, a lot of decisions for Ben to make here. This is a tough one for me to make up my mind on. And I know Ben said, he's pumped. He's got the 4-7 Caleb team. I'm not sure he's been plugged in. That Caleb's team, I think, is the 2nd highest scoring team in the league. He's been firing on all cylinders. He's climbing his way out of the gutter. Man, this is going to be a low-scoring game, I think, between the two of them. I think Caleb takes this one. I think Ben's just too banged up. Josh Jacobs really needs to play for him. I'm not sure if he does. We'll see, right? But I do think Caleb will squeak this one out. Our last matchup, the two Jareds squaring off, Sam's father and Sam's uncle. Sam's father comes in at about a 20-point favorite, 163 to 143. I'm good for the 2nd highest projection this week out of everyone, and I'm still a 20-point dog here. So we all know how good Steele's team is, and now I'm staring into the beast again. We did play previously in Week 3. That was the week my team died, where Malik Neighbors got injured for the whole year, and then CeeDee Lamb got a high ankle sprain. So that was going to be a shootout, and then everyone died, and I ended up losing by 60 points. It was 173 to 110. Still got the win there. We'll do Steele's side of the matchup first. He's 10-1. This game literally doesn't mean anything to him. He's already clinched first place, but foot on the gas. I respect it. We're going to put our best foot out there, and if we're going to beat Steele, we want to beat Steele. We don't want a pity win. You know what I'm saying? I certainly understand why Ford traded Alvin Kamara to Steele for Matt Stafford. If I'm being honest, he just could have picked a quarterback up off the waivers instead of trading away a running back. But, it's neither here nor there. But he does have Kamara in the lineup this week, which makes sense. The rest of his bench is not looking very good. He's got Lamar against the Jets. Jonathan Taylor is a beast against Kansas City. Not a great matchup, but he's still JT. Bijan, we'll see how that shapes up with Atlanta's offense obviously taking a hit with Penix being out, Drake London being out. It's going to affect him. JJ hasn't been great because of 9, who's just horrible. JSN's fantastic. Jake Ferguson's been good. Puka's been good. And then Kamara, Packers, and Brandon Aubrey. So, real good team. We all know how good Steele's team is. On my side of the matchup, we're a little banged up again. Jalen Warren didn't practice today. We really need him to play for sure. It's tough looking at our wide receiver room. We started with CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, and Mike Evans, and now we just have CeeDee Lamb remaining. Quentin Johnson on bye. He's going to have to score the same amount of points he did last week. I do have Jaden Higgins in the lineup right now because if Jalen Warren doesn't play, I need to have the option to flex someone else in, which would be Josh Downs, and Jaden Higgins plays on Thursday. So he's in the lineup right now. We'll see. We might make some trades. We might put some feelers out there. You know how it is. We're always trying to make moves, even if we're not making moves. We're always thinking about making moves. And I made the same joke the first time I did the me and Steele matchup. I make it every year. I'm definitely picking Jared to win here, and then I pause and wait for you guys to laugh, and then I tell you who I'm actually going to pick. So Jared's going to win this. I do think Steele takes this one. He doesn't need to win this one. I really need to win this one to kind of stay afloat. This stretch of Sam Steele back-to-back is a pretty brutal schedule. Whoever the schedule maker is, I have words with them. That's a tough one for sure. But, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I got my 2 tight end stack, my double POW, Trey McBride, Tyler Warren combo. But I do think Steele takes this one. I think we're both going to score above 140, but I think Steele's going to take it. That wraps me for this week. Yeah, that about wraps me. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate this league. If anyone wants to talk shop, want to talk some trade, hit my line. I'm always down. But other than that, go Pats. And I hope I beat Steele this week.